Battle of the Princesses. Some poisoned, one destined to be queen. Not her. Certainly not her. With that horror movie-like photo. But yes, there she is. Catherine has been making a new public appearance today and speaking out about her cancer battle. That's, of course, as fresh questions are raised about these two women, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, and if they have to take some of the flack for the Andrew scandal, which is now engulfing the British royal family. But first to this bizarre new publicity stunt from the fake Duchess, who now seems to understand that covering up her face is the best way to promote her failed brand, as according to Taz posted, alongside some far less flattering examples, same vibe. But of course, it was Meghan's propagandists at People magazine who were quick to report that, of course, there was some type of royal connection to this odd Instagram post. Yes, apparently that's the same outfit, the Roland Mouret dress that she wore to the Royal Foundation dinner in London in November 2018, where she attended alongside Prince Harry, Prince William, and Catherine, the Princess of Wales. And yes, when she was a real royal. Let me bring in the wonderful Lady Colin Campbell. Now, Lady C, look, we know that this brand is in deep trouble, but it's so obvious she's just ran out of ideas. I mean, what is with that picture? What does she think is going on with this?
Well, actually, Dan, I thought it was really rather clever because she's managed to get the point across that she is royal, that she's married to the king's son, and that the Prince and Princess of Wales are her brother-in-law and sister-in-law. So by wearing the Roland Mouret dress, she's actually re-established a link with the royal family, which, as you know, she desperately needs to keep refreshed, because the only thing that's of any interest to anybody is not Meghan Markle, it's her connection to the royal family.
Oh, indeed it is. Indeed it is. But I just think that picture is so bizarre. It's like a horror movie, isn't it? But look, obviously, we have been seeing Catherine a lot at the moment, Lady C, and thank God, because, of course, for the rest of the British royal family, life is pretty tough. We've seen Prince Edward ambushed this week. We've seen Queen Camilla ambushed this week. We've seen King Charles ambushed just today. But not Catherine, who still maintains a huge amount of respect, especially in regards to her recent cancer battle, releasing a deeply personal message to mark World Cancer Day. And it came just one day, actually, after she had been told by a delightful member of the public outside this visit that the public just really want her to get better. Watch this.
I hope you get better really soon.
Thank you.
Well, what happened to you?
Oh, thank you very much. This is good. This is good for my soul. Meeting one. Oh, thank you.
And Lady C, we just love this woman, right? Do you think that is the reason that Catherine is not being targeted even by the hard left, even by the hard Republicans? Because there is a feeling that she is so important, not just to the British royal family, but to national morale.
Oh, I don't think so, Dan. I think if they could target her, they would. But they realize that since they are supposed to be humane and humanitarian, and their shtick is that we love everybody, and the poorer the better, but since we love everybody, even rich grand people and even royals who are suffering from cancer need or have suffered from cancer need to be sort of kept at a distance. I think it's purely cynical. I think that if they could, they would plunge the knife in quicker than they could say boo. But I think that they are clever enough to realize that if they do it, they would alienate some of their supporters. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, They were obviously targeted as a couple last week when she was with William. I think there might be a different feeling there, but it would I honestly think it would turn people so hard against this Republican movement, because at the moment, the British public maybe feel that the King has questions to answer, maybe even feel Prince Edward has questions to answer. But I think actually we're always just so happy to see Catherine. But I do want to show you the King earlier, Lady C. Again, and I'm just very transparent about this. All of this is, I think, being engineered by Republic, which is the organisation that does want to overthrow the British monarchy. They're the organisation that has reported Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to the police this week. This is their video, so I'm just being very transparent about that. But this is what happened. It was in Essex, and police apparently did question the heckler. Now, they claim that public anger is growing. That's what Republic is saying. But let's just watch this, lady.
All Dedham residents.
Yes, I lived it. Stop.
Charles! Charles! Have you pressurised the police? He's not investigating Andrew!
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
If you don't think these people need justice,
That's not coming here to show them.
well, it is. Because this is the only way to make it clear to people that Andrew should not be let off.
And then he was also questioned by a journalist too, Lady C. What do you make of it, Lady C?
Oh, typical. I mean, but you can't blame Republic, because Republic is trying to bring down the monarchy. And it has to be said, they are getting a great deal of assistance from the government. They're getting a great deal of assistance from the Prime Minister. They're getting assistance from Montecito. They're getting assistance from the United States of America. And they are getting assistance from the mainstream media, even those elements of it which regard themselves as pro-monarchist are misreporting in certain instances the reality of what is going on. And I mean, you know, many people seem to have missed the point that this whole melee is a lot more complicated than people seem to realize it is. For instance, the centrist element of the Labour Party is being attacked by the more extremist element of the Labour Party. So they are using Peter Mandelson's existence and Keir Starmer's opportunistic use of him as ambassador. And this is a Labour Party struggle in part. Where are you reading that? Where are you hearing that in the mainstream media? Nobody's addressing it. That's one of the elephants in the room. So I think that the mainstream media are being remiss, and I think that Republic is actually showing that it's got its act together very effectively. I don't happen to approve of their objective, but you can't argue with their right to actually use what is going on.
Well, indeed, and I'm a free speech absolutist, and I think one of the big problems is that the Royal Rota for so long has been corrupted, has been complacent, and has been mute on a lot of these things. But we will come to it in just a bit more detail in one moment, Lady C, but I don't want to get distracted first from this message that Catherine did release for World Cancer Day, because, of course, it is so important, and this was such a personal one for her. Watch.
On World Cancer Day, my thoughts are with everyone who's facing a cancer diagnosis, undergoing treatment, or finding their way through recovery. Cancer touches so many lives, not only patients, but the families and friends and caregivers who walk beside them. As anyone who's experienced this journey will know, it's not linear. There are moments of fear and exhaustion, but also moments of strength, kindness, and profound connection. Today is a reminder of the importance of care, understanding, and hope. Please know you are not alone.
And Lady C, that message just shows how much our future queen has changed after her own life-threatening cancer battle.
Well, you know, Dan, looking death in the face is a big wake-up call for anybody with a brain and a heart. And I think she's dealt with it magnificently. And I think most people recognize that fact. Even people who aren't monarchists, I think they respect the fact that she's a decent, kind, and a relatively young woman who could lose her life and whose young children could lose their mother. And, oh, sorry.
Who's calling?
I thought I turned it off.
Who is it?
Oh, how do I turn it off?
How dare they interrupt us?
Sorry.
Feel free to pick up as long as we can listen in, Lady C. I know your conversations are interesting.
Harry, yes, darling. Yeah, we need to get rid of Megsy B. Yeah.
But look, Lady C, I did want to ask you about something else, because I do wonder if actually, and I know some people will say I'm crazy here, but if actually William and Catherine's reputation has actually come out of this scandal enhanced. And I point to a post from Victoria Arbiter, the American-based royal commentator, of course, the daughter of Dickie Arbiter, who wrote, William and Kate were criticised for not inviting Fergie to their wedding in 2011. With the benefit of hindsight, perhaps those same critics will commend their decision. And you think about that, Lady C. You think about the fact that William has always taken a tougher stance than his father on the issue of Andrew and the issue of Harry, of course. And I do just wonder if, even though there is this almost historic crisis engulfing the monarchy, because the heir to the throne and his wife remain quite untouched by this scandal, things will be okay. What do you think? Is that too positive a spin?
No, I hope things will be okay. You know, the royal family has been through many other things before and survived. But I think Victoria Arbiter's point is actually a good one, because remember, William has known Sarah all his life. His mother and Sarah were very close. And when the children were young, they did everything. The two sisters-in-law and the four children did everything together. They used to go on holidays together. They often had lunch and dinner together at each other's houses, etc. William will have known that Sarah has always been deeply dodgy. Now, I've known that Sarah was deeply dodgy. And what people seem to not realize is a lot of the flack that Andrew has been getting is due to Sarah's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It was much closer than his with Jeffrey Epstein. And I am the person who actually said that originally, that I was told by a member, so let me rephrase. I was told by somebody close to the situation that it wasn't 15,000, that I think it was 2.1 million. I think it was 2.1 million that Jeffrey Epstein had given her, or that she owed him. And of course, it was basically a gift, but it was a gift that was reliant upon her relationship with him. And indeed, in the emails that have recently been released, she accuses him of using her to reach Andrew, and then effectively dumping her. So, but Sarah has always been the dodgy one.
Yes.
Very financially dodgy. Very.
Yes, indeed. But Lady C, there are question marks now over the other poisoned princesses, Beatrice and Eugenie, because sure, the revelations are particularly horrendous for Andrew and Fergie. It's horrible for their two daughters to see how their parents were discussing them with the world's most prolific paedophile and child sex trafficker. For example, Fergie talking to Jeffrey Epstein in one case about the fact that one of her daughters was away at a shagging weekend, her words in this case. But at the same time, when they went to visit Jeffrey Epstein with Fergie just 5 days after his release from jail, they were 19 and 21. They were adults. Now, I have a very close relationship with my two parents, but if they were to introduce me to two strangers, I would ask some questions. Oh, this dude's just been released from jail, Mum. Like, what's that about? Especially if I was a goddamn member of the British royal family, where all of my interactions are controlled and are likely to be analysed. But this is how Beatrice and Eugenie are fighting back this week, Lady C. So I'll take you through this, then get your reaction. The Daily Mail reporting that they are aghast at the new revelations, their mother's cosy relationship with the paedophile financier and her emails about them. They report that sources close to the sisters say they are also appalled and embarrassed about the new photos of their father, Andrew, crouching over a mystery woman lying on the floor. The siblings have been left ashamed by their mother's sycophantic emails to the paedophile financier after his conviction for child sex crimes. Now, you remember, of course, she described him as a legend, joked they should get married. In other emails she sent him, she mentioned Eugenie's sex life and revealed Fergie had taken her children to lunch with the paedophile when they were still teenagers. A source close to Eugenie and Beatrice now telling the Daily Mail they are aghast at what they have read. They are mortified by the emails their mother has sent to Epstein. It is so embarrassing for them. We don't believe the girls were told much about what has just emerged, and they will simply be aghast at just how close their parents were to this appalling man. And of course, just how close they were was the fact that Sarah took them to see Epstein just 5 days after he was released from prison for child sex crimes. That's what the new emails reveal. Of course, he did 12 months for soliciting a child for prostitution. He was placed under house arrest. At the time of the visit, Beatrice and Eugenie would have been 20 and 19 respectively. Epstein confirmed that meeting in an email sent to Ghislaine Maxwell. We know she is in jail. This email was sent on July the 28th, 2009. And he wrote, Ferg and the two girls come yesterday. The day before, Fergie had herself emailed Epstein to arrange the visit, writing, what address shall we come to? It will be myself, Beatrice and Eugenie. Are we having lunch? Now, emails seen by the Daily Telegraph newspaper show that the group met at Epstein's Palm Beach mansion, where the paedophile served vegetable lasagna prepared by a Parisian chef. So, are these two girls, Lady C, innocent in all of this? Or actually, at some point, do they have to take some responsibility? They were adults when this meeting took place.
Dan Wootton raises a series of claims that deserve closer examination, not because they are sensational, but because of what they imply. In this particular video, he frames a narrative around 3 interconnected themes: the public positioning of Catherine, Princess of Wales, following her cancer message, the alleged reputational decline of Meghan Markle and her brand strategy, and the widening shadow of the Andrew Epstein scandal over peripheral royal figures, including Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. Alongside this, he introduces the role of activist groups, media framing, and what he suggests may be a coordinated pressure environment surrounding the monarchy. The purpose here is not to react emotionally to tone or rhetoric, but to examine the implications of the arguments being made, their structure, incentives, and likely consequences. Dan Wootton operates as a political and royal commentator, and in this video he adopts a combative editorial framing. The transcript shows that the discussion blends satire, opinion, reported claims, and speculation within a single narrative stream. That stylistic choice is significant because it shapes how audiences interpret allegations versus commentary. From the outset, Meghan Markle is framed through language describing publicity stunts and brand failure, while Catherine is framed through resilience, illness, and public respect. This contrast is not presented as neutral observation. It functions as a narrative dichotomy, one figure associated with authenticity and entrance, the other with image management and strategic visibility. This is not uncommon in commentary media, but analytically, it tells us less about the individuals themselves and more about the editorial lens through which they are being presented. A notable portion of the segment focuses on Meghan Markle's alleged use of a previously worn royal-era outfit in an Instagram post, with the implication that this was a calculated attempt to reassert royal relevance. Crucially, this is presented as interpretation rather than verified intent. The analytical question is not whether such symbolism exists. Public figures often use visual continuity, but whether commentary is attributing strategic motive without direct evidence. When commentators infer intention from aesthetic choices, they shift from reporting into narrative construction. This matters because the video repeatedly suggests reputational desperation or brand decline as underlying motives, yet offers no direct commercial data, internal sources, or strategic documents to substantiate that claim. Instead, the conclusion appears to be drawn from optics and tone. Don's discussion of Catherine's cancer message introduces a more nuanced argument that her illness has altered public sentiment and insulated her from criticism. This is framed less as sympathy and more as a strategic shield in public discourse. Here, the implication is subtle but important. The suggestion is that critics, including Republicans or anti-monarchist voices, may exercise restraint not out of compassion alone, but due to reputational risk. This aligns with broader media patterns. Public figures facing serious illness often experience a temporary recalibration of public scrutiny. However, attributing that restraint to cynicism, as some guests imply, moves from observable media behavior into psychological speculation. A more cautious interpretation would be that public discourse naturally softens during periods of visible vulnerability, regardless of political alignment. Another key theme is the role of the group Republic and the framing of protests as part of a wider anti-monarchy campaign. Dan suggests that public confrontations with King Charles are being engineered to amplify crisis narratives. From an investigative standpoint, this introduces a broader institutional dynamic. Activist groups benefit from visibility during periods of scandal, while commentators benefit from heightened narrative tension. Both operate within an attention economy where conflict drives engagement. Importantly, the video does not present documented coordination between Republic, government actors, or media institutions. It presents this as interpretive commentary. Therefore, under an analytical standard, these connections should be treated as speculative framing rather than established fact. A central and more consequential argument in the transcript concerns Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, particularly their alleged visits to Jeffrey Epstein with their mother after his conviction. Here, the discussion moves into ethical territory rather than legal territory. Don raises the question of responsibility based on adulthood at the time of certain interactions. His guest counters that young adults accompanying a parent would not necessarily question the parent's associates. This exchange is significant because it reveals the core tension: proximity versus culpability. Investigatively.
Sorry, Dan. I honestly do not think that those girls had any part to play in anything untoward, and there is no reason why two young women wouldn't go along with their mother without, you don't question who your parents' associates are. I mean, and whatever has been said about Andrew and Sarah, the fact is that they brought up those girls very well, and they have been given credit, even by the mainstream media, for having brought up those girls well. And why would Sarah have been saying to either of those girls, oh, you know, he's had a dodgy conviction. And let us remember as well that what he was convicted of and what he served time for was soliciting a minor for prostitution. Sorry, Mickey has to move. Which is not the same thing as if he had. So there was.
Yeah, but you still wouldn't want to go and take your 19 and 20-year-old daughters to have lunch with the guy.
That's on Sarah, and I think that she should be pilloried for all of this.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
see, and what Amanda Patel is saying, Lady C, in the Daily Mail, and I'll let you respond to this, but she thinks that there is a way out for Beatrice and Eugenie, but actually it involves them having to speak out against their parents. So this is what she argued. Epstein emails reveal how deeply Beatrice and Eugenie are mired in their parents' revolting world. Here's why I don't feel sorry for them and the one way they will rid themselves of stench. And she wrote, following the latest dump of information from the Epstein files, we know that the former Prince Andrew agreed to a hookup with a Russian girl procured by the paedophile and that the prince invited Epstein to dinner at Buckingham Palace after his release from prison. We even know that in 2010, Fergie was joking with him in an email about their daughter Eugenie's sex life. Not only that, but Fergie also begged the convicted sex offender for £20,000, and she said, just marry me. And we know all of that. We have obviously gone through all of that all week. But she goes on to talk about Beatrice and Eugenie, saying, how can they ever speak to their parents again? Surely they have no option but to cut them off, not just temporarily, but for good, and to do so publicly, if not for their own sakes, but for those of their children. It is a desperately hard call, but when your parents have so disgraced themselves and in doing so jeopardized the future of the monarchy, this is surely no time for sentiment. Eugenie has reportedly already severed relations with her father, but if she and Beatrice want to salvage and protect their own reputations and their children's future, they must both now do what any child would consider unthinkable. Publicly, they must disown Andrew and Fergie forever and declare openly that they are on the side of Epstein's many young victims. For the sad truth is that the princesses are becoming badly tarnished by the scandal, despite being completely innocent, not just because of the toxic nature of the York name after Andrew's sordid accusations with Epstein, but also because Fergie introduced them to Epstein on a number of occasions. That is why the princesses, still hanging on to their HRH titles after their parents were stripped of theirs, have to act. God knows, I can't imagine anything worse than having to cut both your parents adrift, but to my mind, a public declaration of their doing so is the only way they can salvage their credibility, and in doing so go some way to helping restore the reputation of the monarchy that has been so blackened by their parents. And yet so far, there remains silence from the two princesses. Have we heard any word of apology for the alleged wrongdoings of their father or their mother? The kindest thing we can say about the princesses is that they may have been existing unwittingly in a sort of splendid isolation, unaware of the gravity of their situation. Despite their parents divorcing in 1996 when Beatrice was 8 and Eugenie 6, they all continued to play happy families, living together in the palatial 30-room Royal Lodge in Windsor Park, almost rent-free and with live-in servants. Lady C, I don't really agree with Amanda Patel with much of what she says, actually, but it's interesting. A lot of her information is fed to her via the head of communications for King Charles at Buckingham Palace. Do you think this is too much to ask of them? She's saying that they actually need to publicly disassociate from their own parents.
I will put it this way. King Charles is the supreme governor of the Church of England. Jesus Christ would be appalled that Amanda Patel would have the unmitigated gall to suggest that any child should disavow its parents when the parents have been convicted of nothing. Oh yes, Sarah's behavior is appalling. Andrew's is less appalling in my view, but still not particularly commendable in all instances. But is she seriously suggesting that any child who is decent would repudiate and publicly repudiate its parents in these circumstances? Whatever happened to good Christian values? Whatever happened to the commandment, honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days on this earth may be long. I mean, this is a part of the rot that she represents. She, Amanda Platel, is representing that we are having to cope with as a society, where intolerance and actually truly appalling behavior is being forwarded as moral behavior. I'm sorry, Amanda Platel's call for repudiating the parents by the children is, in my opinion, immoral, amoral, irreligious, totally unjustifiable, and would show that both those girls were absolutely reprehensible, because so they're supposed to save their skin by throwing their parents to the wolves. Sorry, I think it's revolting, and if whatchamacallit, Tobin Andre is behind this, all I can tell him is, Tobin, darling, remember what some of the other Andres have got up to, because if you've forgotten, I certainly haven't, and you don't want to force my tongue.
Well, speaking of religious grace, Lady C, let's just end with Catherine and William out again together. This was at Lambeth Palace earlier, where they met with the 106th Archbishop of Canterbury, the Most Reverend Sarah Mullally, and they said that they are looking forward to spending time with Archbishop Sarah and building a strong working relationship with her. This is very interesting. Of course, Catherine, a little bit more religious than William these days. And, of course, William will one day, we hope, be the head of the Church of England. So let's hope they build that relationship. But look, Lady C, I do want to talk to you about the growing strain that has been reported between King Charles and Prince William.
The distinction is essential. Being present at a meeting, even if reported accurately, does not in itself establish knowledge, endorsement, or involvement. The transcript itself acknowledges that sources describe the sisters as aghast and embarrassed by newly surfaced emails, which suggests reputational fallout rather than evidence of complicity. The video also heavily references reported emails from Sarah Ferguson and her alleged communications with Jeffrey Epstein, alongside commentaries suggesting long-standing reputational risk within the York branch of the family. However, much of this analysis relies on secondary reporting from newspapers and unnamed sources close to the sisters. Under documentary standards, such sourcing should be treated cautiously. Anonymous sources can provide insight, but they can also reflect strategic briefings, image management, or narrative positioning within palace-adjacent media ecosystems. The implication raised by Dan, that the York name is becoming toxic, is therefore less a factual conclusion and more a reputational interpretation grounded in ongoing scandal coverage. One of the most philosophically revealing moments in the transcript is the debate over whether Beatrice and Eugenie should publicly distance themselves from their parents to protect the monarchy's reputation. This shifts the conversation from evidence into moral theatre. The suggestion that public repudiation is a reputational necessity reflects a modern media logic. Silence is interpreted as complicity, yet historically, royal crisis management has often relied on silence as a containment strategy, not endorsement. The guest's rebuttal, invoking family loyalty and lack of criminal conviction, introduces a competing ethical framework, presumption of innocence and familial duty. From an investigative perspective, this tension highlights a broader societal shift. Public figures are increasingly expected to make symbolic moral statements, even in the absence of legal findings. That expectation can reshape institutional behavior long before formal accountability processes conclude. Don repeatedly suggests that the reputations of William and Catherine may be strengthened by contrast with scandal elsewhere in the family. This is a strategic reputational theory rather than a factual claim, and it is plausible, not as proof of intentional positioning, but as a natural outcome of crisis differentiation. In institutional crises, Unaffected figures often become symbolic stabilizers. However, attributing foresight or deliberate distancing requires documented evidence of strategic planning. Without that, the safer interpretation is reputational spillover, rather than calculated insulation. Perhaps the most important analytical observation is tonal. The transcript blends satire, mockery, advocacy, and investigative framing within a single program. This hybrid tone can blur the boundary between allegation, opinion, and entertainment. Don also repeatedly emphasizes his independence from mainstream media and reliance on subscriber support. This is not incidental. It signals a structural incentive. Independent commentary platforms thrive on strong narrative framing, perceived exclusivity, and institutional skepticism. That does not invalidate the arguments, but it contextualizes their presentation style. Ultimately, this video is less about individual rules and more about institutional narrative warfare, monarchy versus republicanism, mainstream media versus independent commentary, and reputation versus scandal containment. The key takeaway is not whether each allegation is true or false. Many are explicitly framed as reported claims or interpretations, but how rapidly reputational narratives form in the absence of definitive legal conclusions. Dan Wootton's commentary reflects a broader media environment in which symbolism, association, and timing carry almost as much weight as documented fact. The risk, however, is that complex institutional issues become personalized storylines, and when that happens, public understanding shifts from evidence-based accountability to narrative-driven judgment. For an intelligent audience, the critical task is therefore not to accept or reject the commentary wholesale, but to distinguish between reported claims, interpretive framing, and strategic implication. Because in high-profile institutional controversies, the most consequential developments are rarely the loudest. They are the ones that reshape perception slowly, through repetition, contrast, and narrative positioning over time.